This is like nothing. It's just you just go. And there's no shit.
Figured you probably had a good grasp of it.
We are going to call tonight's meeting to order. Tonight is February 20th, and this is the regular meeting of the Novi Board of Education. If we can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I can get approval for tonight's agenda. Mr. Cook?
I'd like to add committee reports.
Okay.
We had a building naming committee meeting here just before this.
Okay.
And
finance. Yeah, projects, and we had some other. So we'll just put committee reports as a
Committee
general.
reports, yep, okay.
Yep.
Right. I will move that we approve the agenda as amended.
support.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. First, tonight, we'll have our student board representative report. Welcome, Cameron.
All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Ruskin. I appreciate it. Happy to be here. So in the last month since our last meeting, a lot has happened actually. And so starting off with sports, proud to say a new school record has been broken actually by a diver named Drew Reed, who he broke the school record of 6 dives at the swim meet against Salem. I was very happy to see that, considering I've known the guy for forever, and I'm on the team with him. So that was that was truly amazing to be able to watch, like actually see in person. And then we also had our Novi versus Northville basketball game that we just won this past Monday. I was also happy to be there. I got to see that too. They left really quickly after we won, so that was it's nice to win, especially at home too. That was amazing, especially 2 times this season, which is great. I was there for both. And then tonight we have our Novi versus Northville hockey game, which is at 5 p.m. I'm not sure if I don't know the score right now. I fingers crossed, go Novi. But yeah, overall sports has been doing really well, and so way to go Wildcats, right? And so I also wanted to touch on the snow day we had and like this break we had these past few days. The midwinter break actually went really well. I know starting a week earlier we got to have the fall break and then also an extended version of the midwinter break, which was people enjoyed it, truly. Having Valentine's Day off was really nice too. So I got to stay home with my mom. That was real nice. And so yeah, I wanted to thank you all for that. And then also I wanted to talk about a club that I'm part of, or I'm part of it, but I'm a member of the Black Student Alliance, right, at our school, and so I was able to go today, and it was brought to my attention, or not my attention, but I wanted to bring up, there's a lot of different people that don't necessarily get to voice how they, Novi is, when Novi is truly done for them. For me, I have such a unique opportunity to be able to come here with you all and speak about how great Novi is and what I've been able to, accomplish here. But a lot of people don't get to do that, and so obviously I'm here to bring the voice for those people. And I wanted to say people would love to have sit-ins or be able to speak with people like Mr. Micah or our principals and explain what Novi has done for them, and because people have great ideas, truly. And so being able to open that door to somebody that wouldn't necessarily get to have that would be truly amazing. And so I just wanted to put that out there, and obviously nothing needs to happen right away, but just an idea kind of thing. And I also had the unique opportunity to volunteer at Stevenson Public Elementary School, or not Stevenson, it's Stevenson's High School, so it was Livonia Elementary School. And so we were able to have it was a fitness day, and so it brought all these parents and families together to the school and show them how the kids learn and what ideals that they're getting taught and whatnot. And that was truly amazing, being able to see all the different families there. And so something like that maybe for elementary schools, I know we do have performances and plays and things we put on that bring parents in, but being able to show them what we learn in Novi, I think would be a great idea, or something like that we could just incorporate, that if we don't already do that, but just something like that. But overall it's been a nice month, and the people have been very happy, especially with the break. But overall, way to go Novi.
Thanks, Cameron. Does anybody
course.
have any questions or comments for Cameron?
I just would like to say that I love that you thank us for the snow days because we do not make the weather. But I love your enthusiasm for it.
Of course.
And Cameron, I would just like to encourage you to tell your fellow students that are, wanting to share their ideas and information that they're always welcome to come to a board meeting.
Okay.
I know it's only like a 3-minute time slot, but we're always here to listen.
Okay.
Certainly, they could email us. I know Mr. Micah has student focus groups, so if they're really interested in that, make sure that they tell their counselor or Mrs. Carter or one of the assistant principals that it's something that they're really interested in. And then hopefully they get appointed or selected to be a part of those groups, because we certainly want to hear all the voices from the students that want to be heard, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Cook?
Also, as we're preparing to move into a new space, it's gonna be much larger, and we can bring more groups like Student Alliance into and talk to the board and let them present to us and things they're doing where they're not limited to that necessarily 3 minutes. So we're looking for, forward to being in that larger space where we can do a lot of that and meet a lot of the different groups.
Okay. Thank you.
All righty. We will move on to reports to the board. We have one report to the board this evening, and it is Novi Community School District Strategic Planning Update, and I will turn it over to Mr. Micah.
Thank you so much. As you all know, we've started this fall strategic plan, and so I wanted to do somewhat of a mid-year update just to kind of remind everybody kind of where we're at and what we're doing with the plan to date. I will say, I think it's been, I would say not the best effort on my part or our part to market this plan. It's not been a focus in terms of how we've communicated it. We did communicate it several times, but I don't think it's been a point of emphasis, and that's something that I think will shift and change, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we kind of get in. So, speaking about the process, we met starting in the fall of 2023. We had some extensive discussion on establishing the parameters of the plan. The previous plan that the district had not been worked on for a number of years, and so for at least a year and a half prior to my arrival, there was not a strategic plan in place. And so when I dug up the old documents, I think that MASB had come in and conducted some work that had been done at the middle school. There were some great ideas in that plan, many of which we kind of brought into and discussed in our discussions this time. We did a number of surveys. We collected priorities and focus areas, really trying to nail down what were the priorities that the community, the students, the staff, every stakeholder had for where we're kind of going. And one of the key guiding documents, which I'll share in a second, was the graduate profile. The graduate profile is based on essentially what do we want students to leave us with when they leave after 13 years plus of being with our school district. The board then established kind of a refresh of our vision, mission, and values, and we then took those focus area goals and developed strategies and activities and measures of success, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. The final presentation of our strategic plan was provided at the June 24 board meeting, and then the board adopted it in July, and then of course we kicked the year off. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about what exactly happened this year. So our focus areas and goals, as you can see, there are 5 focus areas centering around innovative academics, staff support, wellness, student passions and interests, and financial and infrastructure management. Each of those focus areas has between 1 and 3 goals, so we had a total of 12 goals that we then, from that formed the highest level of our plan, and from there we broke that out into additional pieces. One of the areas that I wanted to share was our measures of success came into a strategic plan scorecard. I don't think that you as a board have seen this particular document yet, but this essentially takes our measures of success. This particular focus area is the financial and infrastructure management, And what we've done is essentially said, okay, here is the detail for what that measure is really asking for. And then what you're going to see on the right is essentially 3 different varying levels of implementation. So you're going to have, an effective range, a developing range, and then an area of concern. And this kind of green, yellow, red system mirrors what we do with iReady. It mirrors what we do with our other data systems. I'm not aware of another school district that has invited 57 different measures of success for accountability measures. And I think it will be hopefully meaningful. I have to say that this is a bit of we're throwing, a dart at a dartboard, if you will, in the sense that, we have not necessarily done this before. So these ranges will matriculate into 24, 25, 25, 26, 26, 27, having, a green, yellow, very quick and easy visual space to look at that. I don't know, Mrs. Holly, if this is the most updated presentation, if you have that loaded up there. I don't know if she's back there.
No,
Looks like, okay, looks like we might be missing a couple of the key slides. So I'm gonna speak on essentially next steps and, kind of where we see this going. All of our 57 measures will have ranges, and I'll send you, I'll send out a more comprehensive document of this presentation that's been more updated. This, the measures of success document will be completed, as well as we intend to continue to utilize this plan to drive a lot of our decisions. So one of the things that I can speak to is by way of example, we're looking at our facilities. And we're pulling up this graduate profile, and what we're saying is, where do these 6 competencies, which really serve as a guiding framework for what we call durable skills, where do these durable skills find themselves in the facilities that we're talking about designing? Do they give our students the ability to collaborate, to think critically, to problem solve? That's an important piece of this entire project. Another piece of the way that we're using this document is when we looked at our literacy resources and materials, we actually would say, do the tasks and the resources that we're using allow our students to benefit from these types of competencies and skills? Do they allow them to innovate? Do they allow them to problem solve and critically think and all of those things? So that is a critical piece that we have really been looking at as a way to kind of say an aspirational guiding document. In terms of our current measures of success, strategies, and activities, those have already been implemented in the fall in many cases, or at least we've started the discussion. Now, one of the things that's difficult is that this year, a lot of our data collection that will be a part of those measures happens in the spring. So what you see is, for example, panorama surveys that are going to be done for our staff and student surveys and our community surveys. Those are all going to happen in the springtime, and probably 25% of those measures are going to come from the panorama data that we collect. There's also information in there on financial data, which will be through audits and things like that. So that information is going to come. We did share this document and our strategic plan at the kickoff with all of our staff. And I think one of the conversations that we've had internally is our staff is very, very busy this year, especially at the secondary level. They're focusing very intensely on grading and reporting practices. At our early elementary school, they're doing a lot with literacy work, which is all in the strategic plan. But there is an element of how much do we emphasize certain things at different times. And sometimes if you're a teacher that's kind of burdened with all of these different things happening at once, it's not as easy to focus on, the strategic plan and take all that in. But we hope to make this more of a regular part of our vernacular. I also want to point out in terms of next steps, and again, I'll send you the full presentation. I don't know if Mrs. Holly was able to pull this up yet, but Joseph South, who came to do part of our town hall meetings, when he talks a lot about his work with artificial intelligence, durable skills, And these are really the things that employers in the future are looking for, because knowledge acquisition is becoming much less of a priority for employers. What they're looking for is, do I have somebody who can take information and critically think about it? Do I have somebody who understands how to find purpose in their work? Do I have somebody who's empathetic and knows how to collaborate with other human beings and then can communicate effectively? Those durable skills need to take the forefront, because simply just memorizing fact figures and statistics is no longer going to be the currency that employers are looking for. And that's actually going to serve as a disservice to our students if we continue to solely focus on those traditional measures and not thinking about what we call these durable skills. So Joseph South is very, very interested in the work that we're doing. He's a internationally known educator, researcher, and he really wants to work with our school district. So some of this work is finding its way into some of those circles, and he will be working with us as well, kind of as we move forward. So the next step plan would be that we will be bringing, once we collect our data, which will be this spring, we're going to wrap up all those measures of success, and we'll have our first kind of evaluation of the district in terms of the district scorecard, and be able to see where do we find reds, yellows, greens, are there adjustments that need to be made, how do we feel we did in our first year. In the kickoff and next fall, when we are rolling out Positivity Project and several other things more, I would say more intentionally, these will find their way into our buildings. There'll be a lot more conversation and dialogue around that. And hopefully what we're doing is we're setting a path, a vision for this work. And over the course of the next couple years, as we develop the next strategic plan, we'll be able to be a lot more intentional about how all of those things kind of pour in and meet into the work that we're doing. So June or July of this year, my hope would be to bring a comprehensive analysis on how we did in year one, coupled with all those metrics that we can kind of look at. I just wanted to kind of give you an update that this work is launched and ongoing, and we have a lot more work to do by way of communication and bringing all of this to the forefront for our staff, students, and community. And surprisingly, when I talk about these things, there are a lot of head nods with our staff and with our community members. There's not a lot of people that are kind of saying this is bad work, we don't agree with that. I think there's a lot of excitement around really kind of focusing our energies, and when we're giving instructional tasks, how are we thinking through this lens? Not just did they memorize the material for a test, or could they pass the thing by memorizing all of the dates that certain things happened. And so we're really trying to move us into that space of giving kids these skills. So exciting work to come, more to come later this spring as we get the data in, and we'll make sure we continue to keep you updated. So.
Thank you, Mr. Micah. We appreciate that review, and it will be helpful to have it here on our YouTube channel for community members to see and hear in case they missed what we've been doing here at the board.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? I mean, Mrs. Bodwin.
Two things. First, it sounds like there were some slides that were not in this presentation. And I don't know exactly how this works when they post the live videos, but perhaps we could put a link to the full presentation in that post.
I don't know if you can pull up the latest version of this presentation.
This is what I have.
Okay.
So you're talking about the slides that had the other part of the, that document?
No, just this updated presentation, the slide deck, but we'll
this
post it.
This has been great for today, but just that way, if people want to look into it more thoroughly, they'll have that opportunity.
It's a great question.
I know we don't have a huge YouTube following, but there are a few people who watch our meetings and they may be curious.
We have a huge YouTube following.
I mean,
Don't minimize us.
It's like more popular than if I made my own personal channel, but it's not like a lot more popular.
I actually got recognized, so.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
You're an influencer out there?
I guess so, yeah. I was walking around the halls and somebody,
Wow.
they're like, you're the one at the board meetings. I'm like, stop it.
Oh, that's what my kids call Novi famous. So congratulations, you're now Novi famous. It's actually not that exciting. But
Sure it is.
my second question, more back on the topic, is do you have any thoughts on how we could, especially like the graduate profile, get that information out to our students like sooner rather than later? Because I do think a lot of this is exciting, and for them to kind of get a sense of what our goals and expectations are would
Yeah.
be good.
Yeah, I think so. So obviously, one of the big events that we have is next week, Tuesday, and this will be a part of that presentation. So we've got a record number of people that have signed up so far, so that's great. So hopefully there'll be an opportunity. Actually, my entire presentation will kind of stem from the topics that I hit will be based on the strategic plan focus areas. So I'll be able to kind of talk about it that way, but I will be talking about this. So that'll be one touch point for community members, and there will be some staff there. But I
As
think
we're
that.
thinking students.
Yep, so as it relates to students, I have a group of students at Meadows Middle School and High School that I meet with, and every year that's a new group of students. The high school students for sure have weighed in on this and have seen it, but that's a small fraction of the student body, right? So I think, to Cameron's point, there are opportunities to get this out to students in a more robust way. So getting it into some of the announcements, maybe Cat's Eye News, things like that.
Oh, that would be a good idea
So-
too, to push it out through the student-run media too. That might be a good
Yep.
opportunity.
So I think there are opportunities to kind of talk through that. And I think it does challenge a conversation, right? So if this is something that we want to bring more into the forefront related to these durable skills, then that does beg a question about what am I asking students to do on a daily, right? And I think that is an important conversation to have, but certainly it's going to be a conversation generator, so.
When I think it's, this is a personal opinion here, but to me, one thing I would really like a lot of our students to know as we talk about mental health and belonging and all of those things that matter to us, nowhere in this document does this say achiever of perfect grades, right? And I think that that's a really important thing for us, for our community and our students to know that we as a board are not asking our students to be perfect. We would like them, to know what their purpose is and to find where they can help the world and, some of those things. So I think for me personally, it's a thing I hear a lot of kids talk about, that they think they're expected to be perfect. And I want them to know that we just want them to try.
Yeah.
They are perfect, just the way they are.
There you go, look at that. Yes, so that,
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Cook?
Would there be a benefit to reporting out where we stand on the scorecard on a mid-year basis versus just only once a year? So we have a time to correct.
I think that there would be some benefit to it from a progress monitoring standpoint. The challenge is that the way that they were currently constructed, it really is based on, for example, a number of the innovative academic things are fall to spring assessment windows, and we don't.
Getting that mid-year measure is not necessarily.
We don't, well, we would have a winter administration for some of those, but for example, if we have, like a staff survey piece that, and there are several measures in there that relate to that, we don't have that staff survey until the springtime. So, I do think there is always room for a mid-year report so that we can update on activities that we're doing, if there are data sets that we have. But maybe that's something that we can tweak in the future when we think about the scorecard, is looking at, are there interim measures that we wanted to add in? Because just a lot of those data points are not available until, we do that assessment in the spring, or we do the surveys in the spring. Some of them are, so by way of example, one of the measures in communication is about district attendance at meetings. And so one of our 3 meetings that we're using for that is the state of the district. So after next week, when we do our attendance roll, we'll know how many people participated versus those that were invited compared to the past year. And that's one of those measures. So we'll have that data point, next week. So I do think that there are some things we could get, but I actually fully agree that it would be good to have a mid-year update. How we get the data in an interim fashion is the question.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to continue what Paul said, I think it's important, if we're only doing this on an annual basis, this is a 3-year strategic plan, you're getting 2 to 3 updates, and then it's time to make the next plan. So I don't think every data point, this has got to be extensive, has to be updated, but even interim ones like that, I think would be important for us to be updated on.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Certainly, if you think of something, you can share that with Mr. Micah, and he'll get the information to us. We'll get that slide deck updated and on the website so that community members and stakeholders who would like to look at it a little deeper will have that information. And then we'll talk more about the state of the district later. I don't want to take Mr. Micah's thunder from his probably superintendent's report when he invites everybody to come, so. Thank you, guys. We'll move on to celebrations. Does anybody have any celebrations to report? Mrs. Bodwine, you were fast over there.
I'm right on top of it tonight. And I am not entirely sure this counts as a celebration yet, but wanted to early in the meeting remind everyone that the Green Gala is March 8th, and they should get their tickets for that. And it starts at 6:30 p.m. At Suburban Showplace. And as a reminder, the NEF, which we can celebrate, helps us out with a lot of things, including our beloved therapy dogs and a number of other wonderful programs that help enhance our student experience. So please come to the Green Gala and help support the NEF and our kids.
Thank you.
And one celebration to add, I wanted to recognize the Novi Middle School Unified team that had their first home game yesterday. We're one of the few middle schools that has a unified team, and I think to tie it back to our strategic plan and goals of having, empathetic collaborators and finding student passions and interests and things like that. But there's 3 coaches, Ms. Cologne, Mr. Sinawi, and Mr. Sosi. The peer-to-peer teacher, Lindsay Radke, did a ton to get our school qualified to have a unified team. And it actually, this whole thing was spurred by a parent that had reached out to Mr. Baker expressing interest in having this team form. But it was a great community excitement in the middle school gym, and to see the smiles on these kids' faces making baskets and their peers. So you have your athlete and then your student peer that's helping them, or their partner, I think they call it. It just was a really cool display of community and showing that all of our students have an avenue to express themselves through athletics or academics and things like that. It's just a really cool, if you haven't gone to a game, either at the high school or the middle school, highly recommend. The next home game, I think, is March 3rd at 3:45 at the middle school. But I just wanted to applaud those teachers that really went above and beyond to make that program happen.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Mena?
Yeah, Cameron mentioned before the Novi Northville game, that was actually the, for the KLA West Division Championship. So Novi did win the KLA West this year, and that was the first time since 2017. Friday night, they'll actually be hosted over at Northville playing Wayne Memorial for the KLA Championship.
Awesome, that's great. I know I'm gonna step outside the box with my little celebration today. So I know we had a lot of Novi versus Northville talk at this table already, and, cause it's rivalry week, right, Cameron? Over at the school, or it was? It was. But I've spent a lot of time at the, at Mount Brighton with the snowboard team, and we have a unified team this year. I don't know if everybody knows that, but Novi did not have what?
United team.
United. I guess it would be, yes.
But yeah.
We're unified. Novi did not have enough riders to fill all the slots to be competitive enough. And Northville had a very new team. They were only maybe 2 years old. And so this year, we had a united team. And so we are the Noville. I love it. I thought we were the Novi Northville team, but a parent made a sign yesterday, and it actually literally says Noville Snowboard Across. And the kids did really well over the last couple weeks with their state qualifiers. And the girls team, as a team, qualified for states, and so they will be participating in that in the next week or so. And then the individual team trials or time trials are coming up on Monday. But it's been a really great experience, and just watching the kids meet new friends and work together as a team and kind of push that rivalry aside to be successful has been really, really fun to watch. So that has been going on. But don't worry, Mr. Mena, I will still be there cheering for Novi when we're versus Northville.
So as mortal enemies, we do get along with
We do, when you need to, yes.
As
You
an
gotta find-
update, Yeah, Northville is beating Novi right now, 7-1 in the second.
7?
Oh,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this may be the last hockey game.
Mrs. Bodine.
I'm sorry, I thought of one more important one that I can't believe I almost forgot. The theater group went to states this past weekend and placed third for the one-act play. I've talked about this a couple times because I think it's a really cool thing that they do. It's actually a competitive theater activity, and they set up the set, and so everything has to go into the truck and is unloaded and set up within a time frame, and then they run their show within a time frame. And if you go 1 second over the 45 minutes that are allotted, every second you lose a point towards your score. So the timing is very precise. And then there's a time that they're allowed to have to take everything down and get it back to their truck. So it's a pretty intense thing, which I was not aware theater could be an intense thing in that capacity, but it was really, really cool to watch. It's the first time I've attended it. The kids did Hamlet, which I think is supposed to be normally around 3 hours, and it was condensed down to 45 minutes. And they did such an excellent job. They did not make any edits to the script, they just cut things out of it. So all of the language was still the original language from Shakespeare, and the judges that critiqued them all applauded their actual understanding and conveying the story in such a tight time frame. So it was very impressive, and just wanted to recognize them for their outstanding efforts.
Third place. on
Third
state.
place, yes, thank you. They got third place, and they did an excellent job. And one of the other really fun moments that I will share, hopefully Neil will be fine with this, but Neil was accepted into U of M's acting program while we were waiting for the results for their show. So while they were waiting for that, there was a big ruckus in the theater when he got his email acceptance. So it's a really fun night for all of them, and our seniors especially had a great time.
Great.
Awesome, thank you for sharing. Okay, we are going to move on to comments from the audience. The board respectfully requests that any individuals wishing to speak to the board provide name, address, and organization they represent. Keep their comments to the allotted time of 3 minutes, and refrain from directing individual members of the board, district employees, or members of the audience. If you have any comments, you can certainly turn in a card to Mrs. Holly, but I don't see any cards at this time. No one wants to talk to us? Okay. We will move on to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda includes approval of bills, board report for December 2024, check register for December 2024, purchase card report for December 2024, approval of minutes of the regular board meeting January 23rd, 2025, approval of field trips, first middle school robotics championship trip, and Novi High School Business Professionals of America Leadership Conference. If I can get a motion. Mrs. Roney?
That the Novi Community School Board of Education approve the consent items as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Roney and supported by Mrs. Bodwine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We will move on to donations. We have one report for donations this evening. Mr. Meinke.
Yes, this is an exciting donation. I just have to get back to my screen here. We have a donation for therapy dogs today, and this comes from the, sorry about that.
Okay.
David and Diane Wallen, both are donors of a $7,000 gift, generous gift. They are both of the donors are members of our Silver Lining Mentor program, which is through Novi Youth Assistance. And these funds are going to be used for the district therapy dog program to further support food, vet bills, grooming, all of those different types of things. So very appreciative of the Wallen family, and it's there for your recommendation and approval today.
Thank you. If I can get a motion? Mrs. Bodwine?
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education accept the generous donation in the total amount of $7,000 as presented, with our great appreciation and thanks.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Bodwine and supported by Mr. Cook. Any comments or questions?
I would like to add a comment of thank you.
Okay.
I think that the therapy dog program, if you see it in the elementary schools, it is impactful. I don't think it's something you can measure, there's no data point behind it, but when a kid is excited to go to school because they get to see a dog or if it changes the direction of their day because they were upset about something, those dogs have an impact on the kids. And I think any donation to support that is great.
Thank you,
So
very
thank
well
you to
said.
them.
Any other comments or questions? All right. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0. Thank you so much to the Wallen family. We will move on to action items. We have quite a few on our list tonight. There's 6 of them. We have Personnel Report A. Mr. Micah.
This is an exciting time of the meeting because we get an opportunity to present some incredible new family members to the Wildcat family. And tonight's list is relatively long. I know Dr. Carino and I talked about this, but it's been a long time coming for some of these positions. So it's great to see Dr. Carino's department working tirelessly to pull this off. So I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you. Good evening. As Mr. Micah said, tonight's personnel report is a bit lengthier than normal, as we are pleased to bring forward several outstanding candidates for positions that have been posted for an extended period. So good things come to those who wait. Additionally, we have begun receiving retirement notifications for the end of the school year because our retirement notification deadline is approaching. So you will see that we have several of those tonight for your consideration. We recommend the following candidates for employment. We bring Ashley Harvey for your consideration as a Novi High School science teacher. Ashley is a recent graduate of Central Michigan University and has successfully completed her student teaching. We also recommend Jeffrey Van Gorder, school psychologist at Parkview and Village Oaks. Jeffrey has served as a school psychologist in Southgate Community Schools since 2017. We also recommend DeKayla Davis for a self-contained special education paraprofessional position at Village Oaks. DeKayla has worked for the State of Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for the past several years. Monica Michael is being recommended for the Media Center paraprofessional position at Novi Meadows. Monica has been a valued member of our district since 2021, serving as a guest paraprofessional, guest teacher, and noon aide. Gada Kakish is being recommended as the receptionist and secretary at Novi Middle School. Gada has served as a hall monitor at the middle school since 2021 and is eager to transition into this new role. We also bring forward Begum Tekin Sifti for the Novi Woods Special Education Paraprofessional position. Prior to relocating to Novi, Begum worked as a career services team manager in Istanbul. Finally, we also recommend 2 candidates for bus driver positions. Elian Israel and Jennifer Johnson are both candidates who bring experience from Durham Transportation and Plymouth Canton and will be valuable assets to our transportation team. In addition, as we approach the district's retirement notification deadline, we recognize the following individuals who have announced their upcoming retirements. First is Ann Hansen, Director of Early Childhood and Community Education. She will retire on June 30th. Ann has been an integral part of our district, and her contributions will be deeply missed. Sheila Holly, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Board of Education, will also retire on June 30th after more than 40 years of dedicated service. Her impact on our district is immeasurable, and she leaves very big shoes to fill. Paul Hoffman, Middle School Social Studies teacher, and Kathleen Karbowski, Kindergarten teacher at Novi Woods, will also retire at the conclusion of the school year, and we extend our gratitude for both of them for their years of service and wish them well in this next chapter. Additionally, Jennifer Villanueva, Special Education Parapro at Novi Woods, has made a position change to work at the ECEC. Jarek Balk, bus driver, has been dismissed from his position. Allison Berg, 4th grade teacher at Orchard Hills, will be taking a year 1 healthcare leave of absence. And finally, David Kutuski, bus driver, will be taking his 2nd healthcare leave of absence. And that concludes this evening's personnel report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carino. If I can get a motion? Mr. Meno?
Yeah, I move that the board adopt the personnel recommendations as presented.
Second.
Recommended by Mr. Mena and supported by Mr. Mishner. Any comments or questions? Mr. Mishner?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I remember when I first met Ann Hansen many years ago when my son was probably as tall as this table, over at the ECEC, his first year of preschool in the district. And it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but he's now almost as tall as me and 11 years old. So I wish her the best in all her future endeavors. And we're definitely going to miss Sheila. Fun fact about Sheila, for anybody who doesn't know, she is a certified motorhead. She can talk cars with the best of them, and it's been a pleasure to trade stories about big block V8s and different vehicles. So personally, I'll miss her passion for all things cars in the administrative building, but we wish you the best as well, Sheila.
Any other comments or questions? I'll just say that there is going to be more to come, Sheila, to thank you for your thankless work and all you've done in this building, for all of us, for boards that have come before us, for superintendents who've come before Mr. Micah and Steve, and you could probably name the list prior to me being even here in Novi. So we'll save those words of gratitude for a later date, because the great news is that you're with us until June. So along with other people on this list who are retiring, so.
Amazing secretary. And she does have some fans that are running these videos as well.
Yeah,
as you can see.
exactly. So, all right, seeing no other comments, if I can get a vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. I will turn it back over to Dr. Carino so that you can do the introductions of our new hires.
Thank you. We have several of our new hires here this evening, so in no particular order, I will call you up to the podium so you can introduce yourselves. Ashley Harvey.
Okay.
You can bring your family up too if you'd like to.
I don't know, do you want to stand? Perfect. Hi, I'm Ashley Harvey. I have been teaching biology since the last week of school in December, right before winter break with the crazy power outage week. But I've been teaching biology to 9th and 10th and a few sprinkled in age ranges since then, and I've been having a great time. We're underway with our second semester, and I'm a recent graduate of Central Michigan University, and I'm very excited to be a part of the Novi family.
Welcome.
Jeffrey Van Gorner.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jeff Van Gorder. I have the pleasure to be a school psychologist now here in Novi. I'll be joining my wife, who's a 5th grade teacher over at Meadows, so very excited. I brought my 3-year-old who's out in the hallway now, but he was very excited to see too. But I'm very excited to work now in the elementaries. I'm sure in my career I'll be hopping around buildings a little bit, servicing all the students here. But I'm just excited to serve the community, serve these students. So thank you guys so much.
Welcome.
You're gonna have to redo it when your son comes back. So you can see you at the podium.
Oh, yeah, is he back?
Yeah. Cool.
Bring him on up so he can wave at the TV.
Now he's being shy.
Oh,
It's like, no way.
We'll have to show them the video. I hear you have a great YouTube channel.
very exciting.
Hours and hours of entertainment.
Oh, there he is.
Hi.
Somebody give him something.
Right, yeah.
There he
We'll
is.
clap for him too.
DeKayla Davis.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is DeKayla Davis, and I recently accepted the self-contained paraprofessional position at Village Oaks. And I just want to let you guys know that Novi School District is magical. Because after, like you said before, I worked for the state, for the Department of Health and Human Services for 10 years. So I worked with juvenile delinquents. I've worked in a children's psychiatric hospital, and I loved it. I did it for 10 years, and then the facility closed down. So I decided to take a year off and travel the world. And I did it, and I loved it, and I went to Hawaii and Jamaica and everywhere. And then my husband said, "Do you want to just not work?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I was able to be home with my kids in the summer, and then I decided I'm gonna sub. So I subbed for a year and a half, and then I went to Village Oaks. And it's different being a parent of Village Oaks. My daughter was there from kindergarten to 4th grade. awesome. And then my youngest daughter has been there from kindergarten to second grade. And as a parent, the experience was great, but as a sub, it was amazing as well. Then they were having trouble with the self-contained classes. And then they asked me 3 times and I said no 3 times. And then I thought, you know, when I considered going back to work, I was looking for a work environment that would not lead to depression, that would not lead to regrets, and that would not lead to burnout. And I found that. And when I say it's magical, I mean it's magical because I don't have to work, but I want to work. And that makes all the difference to me. And I love my job. I wake up and I look forward to going to work. I look forward to seeing my kids. I look forward to seeing the coworkers. So I want you guys to know that as the board, like you have something really special going on in the schools. All right, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Monica Michael.
Hi everyone, I'm
Hi.
Monica Michael. I really thought when Dr. Crino was giving the background that we were going to be off the hook for everything, and I got like really comfortable. But I have 2 kids in the district. I have a 5th grader and I have a 3rd grader, and then I've been substitute teaching for 4 years, my 4th year. I'm a little nervous, but when the part-time media para position posted, I thought about it. And I had subbed in a media specialist or media paraprofessional role over 100 times. And so I just knew I'd have a passion for the job, so I decided to apply for it. And I'm just super excited to be a Novi employee. I love talking in front of the kids, but not really adults.
It is a different thing, isn't it?
And last but certainly not least, Begum Tekin Tifti.
Hello, my name is Begum. Thanks for the invitation. I work as a special education paraprofessional. I have a son. He is also in the district. He is in kindergarten at Novi Elementary. And before relocating in Novi, I was working in a university and I was responsible for the career services. I was working with young adults, now I'm working with the kids and it's more fun. Thanks again.
Thank you, welcome. So I know we've already had a almost hour meeting. You are welcome to stay. If not, we have this really fancy YouTube channel and you can watch it at home, but I just don't want you to feel awkward if, you know, you step out. I know that Cole here has been super patient, and so if he's almost ready for bed, we'll just take just a couple minutes, and congratulations and welcome again, but don't feel weird about leaving our meeting, so you're welcome.
And there we go.
You're also welcome to stay. I'm not kicking you out.
Dr. Russell, Mr. Giardini's trying to leave.
I know. Time.
Misunderstood. I apologize.
You're not excused.
I'm not excusable yet.
Mr. Grimaldi can leave, but not
Yeah, you could leave Grimaldi.
Grimaldi will stay.
Oh my goodness.
I'll do it.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Alrighty, we will move on to our second action item, which is the 2025 bond program construction manager approval. Mr. Menka.
Thank you. Back at our last board meeting, we brought forward a recommendation for our construction manager for the 2025 bond program. You'll know that we had a panel of interviews that consisted of 4 of the top construction manager firms in the state. Chrisman Company rose to the top. Their use of technology, their ability to work on very complex projects while people are using the spaces was a key factor, as well as the thoughtfulness that they brought to how they would approach phasing. We've talked a lot about if we're going to do a significant construction project at our high school, we want the student experience to be one that is one of learning, one of a positive experience where, you know, a student, you know, for 4 years is not just simply going to be in a construction zone. And so they had some really innovative thoughts related to that. Why it's important to bring the construction manager on now, even though we're not doing anything with the 2025 bond program just yet, we're in planning phase, is that they have cost estimating teams that'll start to be able to give us an idea on, it's great that you may want to try this or do this thing, but they're going to be able to put a dollar figure to it. So from a cost and financial analysis perspective, their team will be invaluable as we prepare what we would be asking our community for in the 2025 bond. So it's our recommendation again to approve the Chrisman Company for our construction management services for the district's 2025 bond program.
Thank you. If I can get a motion? Mrs. Bodwine?
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the Chrisman Company for the construction management services for the district's 2025 bond program.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Bodwine and supported by Mrs. Kleber. Do we have any comments or questions? I know we had a capital projects meeting of the whole where we had open dialogue, so we brought this to our previous meeting. Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll go on to our next action item, which is the 2025 bond program municipal financial advisor approval. Mr. Menka.
When you go out for a bond, you need to have a municipal financial advisor. The purpose of this partner is that they help project what taxable values will be, as well as what types of millage rates are going to be required. And then ultimately, once the millage is in place, they help with the investments of the proceeds so that you can maximize the dollars that are brought in by a program. So we had several bids that came in. Baker Tilly is the group that we are recommending for bond financial services for the 2025 bond program.
Thank you, Mr. Micah. If I can get a motion, Mr. Meno?
Yeah, I move that the board approve standard form agreement with Baker Tilly for their bond financial services for the 2025 bond program.
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Mena and supported by Mrs. Roney. Any comments or questions? Again, we had capital projects committee of the whole meeting and talked about this before, so. I know a community member recently asked me, you know, how we come up with a dollar amount. So now that having this form of agreement, this will help us kind of move forward into what that looks like and what the bond program will ultimately look like. So, okay. Seeing, oh, do you have a question, Mrs.
Well,
Rhodes?
no, I don't have a question, but I mean, just going through the report, it's very impressive to see who they've worked with. I mean, I think it was what, like maybe 4 pages long.
Mm-hmm.
So very impressive.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We will move on to the MASB Board of Directors 2025 election. I will let Mr. Menka kind of give an overview, and then I think we will have, we haven't had a chance for information and discussion because this comes down from MASB, and this is the meeting that we've had to talk about it and to take action on it, so.
Yeah, so every year in February, the district will select a member of the Michigan Association of School Boards, and we are going to cast a ballot for one of the group directors for our region. Regions are based on geography, and Novi will be casting 1 vote for Region 8, districts with pupil membership between 5,000 and 11,000. So in Region 8, there are 8 candidates running for 2 seats, so you'll be voting on 2 seats. And so it is there for your recommendation. I know that there were 4 of these 8 individuals that participated in, they did a video interview kind of announcing themselves, giving a little bit of information. All of that information has been distributed, but it's there for your consideration this evening.
Thank you. So I will open up the floor to anybody who wants to start the dialogue. I know a few people attend the Oakland County School Board Association. Actually, Mrs. Roney has been appointed to fill a seat in that role, so she has some experience with people who serve at a different level than here at the local Novi level, so.
After reviewing everything, I failed to look at the 2 seats. So I was prepared to come in and there were 4 people that actually did the interviews. And I don't know if anybody else watched them. But I feel very confident in Paul, I want to say Colin, is it?
Paul
From-
Colin.
From Bloomfield Hills Schools. He's in Oakland County. And the other person, I had between 2, and if anyone wants to go one way or the other. Roderick Means from Westwood Community. He has been on the board for 28 years. Westwood's 28 years. He has all the certifications. And Randall Meisner from Fitzgerald Public Schools. He is in Macomb County. He also seemed to have done a lot of stuff. So I would be happy, of course, definitely with Paul, and either with Roderick or Randall, if anybody's got an opinion.
Mr. Commissioner?
So I would definitely support nominating Roderick Means for his almost 3 decades on his own school board, but also the simple fact that he has been participating in MASB board and events before they even got to the President's Award, which is the most you can possibly be recognized for. He's been on countless of their committees, their government relations, their bylaws committees. He was a mentor when they used to have that program. And he's been to the conference in DC and many of our state and winter and spring seminars. So I think his experience speaks volumes. So I'd strongly support him. I would actually like to bring attention to Dr. Inaisha Hanna. She has 3 years of experience on the Pontiac School District, which isn't a tremendous amount of time compared to the other 3 candidates. However, her professional career is Director of Strategic Partnerships and Initiatives for Education, which focuses on the 16 to 24-year-olds in Pontiac. And I think her professional career dovetails very well with the mission of MASB. And I think she can bring a different perspective to that board. So I think she has something different to offer that I did not see offered by the other 2 candidates that I did not mention. They had maybe some longer-term experience on the school board, but what attracted to me about her as a viable candidate was her professional career and how I think the insights and stuff she learns professionally can dovetail really well with supporting our Michigan Association of School Boards. So those would be my 2 picks.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments, or Jamie?
I was gonna, not to repeat what they've all just said, my first vote would be for Paul for reasons already stated. He was the one that was very direct in his purpose for running. He wasn't just trying to add to his resume, but I feel like he has a specific purpose for running. I thought Roderick was also exemplary in the amount of committees and time that he's put on these boards. Dr. Hannah, I did watch her interview as well, and I agree that her work experience would carry over. My only hesitancy with her was that her specific reason for running was to elevate her particular school district, and that wasn't super appealing to me, but I do agree that her work experience had some carryover as well.
I'll just make a comment. So I watched, just so people who are listening know, there are 8 candidates here, and only 4 of them participated in the interview opportunity that was done by Oakland County School Board Association, and those were Anisha, Paul, Roderick, and Randall. So that kind of took those 4 to the top for me, that if they were able to take the time to participate and interview and have their colleagues get to know them, that we took the time to listen to them. I would agree too with everything that's been said, that Paul Colin actually gave specific reasons. He knew the mission, the vision of MASB, and he gave reasons why he wanted to serve on that board. He wanted to kind of find out how he can support the local school districts and hold MASB accountable. In a sense, Michigan Association of School Boards is a group that is here to support the local districts. And he was talking about being data-driven and finding out why school boards are using them for certain things and not using them for other things, and how we can make sure that school boards are kind of getting the attention that they need, and that group is of value to the local school districts. So as far as Anisha and Roderick had an enormous wealth of experience. Anisha had 3 years, I believe, maybe 4. And so I do agree that her connection between her professional life and service is amazing, and I would love to see what she does in the future. Her conversations were geared specifically towards Pontiac School District. She did kind of tweak that towards the end of the conversations when she summed up her closing statement. But I feel like although Roderick did not go into the depth that Anisha did, his service for 28 years really holds a lot of water with me, and he is really, he's in the 700 series, I think, of courses that he's taken and the participation that he's done. And he's a moderator for all things MASB and really participated quite a bit. So, I personally would probably support those two, but I do believe that at some point, Anisha certainly has a lot to offer to the School Board Association. So, any other comments or questions? Okay. So we have a little bit of differentiation at the table. I would say the way that I'd like to go about this, we did this last year and it was a little bit like choppy. So we're not going to be choppy tonight. So I would say if someone wants to make a recommendation, and then the board can either support it or turn it down, and then we'll go from there. I think we'll do both of them because that's how my paper says, and I'm very like Mr. Mena.
Okay, then I'll move that the board casts an MASB Board of Directors election ballot for Region 8 for Paul Collin and Roderick Means, candidates for a 3-year term each.
Support.
A recommendation by Mr. Mena and supported by Mrs. Roney. We can still have further dialogue if we would like, or we can just go ahead and take a vote and see kind of how it goes. Okay, seeing none, then I think that we will just I don't think we need a roll call vote, do we? So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. So Sheila will take these names and she will forward them to the MASB as one vote on our behalf. And yeah, it's a little tricky sometimes when you don't know these people. We know them kind of on the surface, some of them, but I think that they all will do a really great job representing us at the MASB. So thank you. All right, we will move on to the 2024-2025 budget amendment approval, number 1 approval.
Thank you. Each year in February, typically, we are coming to ask the board to amend our budget. As you know, we approve our budget in June, largely without the knowledge of what the state budget's actually even going to be, but we are required by June 30th to have a budget in place. Once we get those final allocations, of course, we're working through that through the fall. And then in usually February timeframe, we're asking for the board to do an amendment, which kind of gets us closer to where we think we're going to end up by the time our final budget amendment happens in June. Ms. Cicluna presented to the Finance Committee of the Whole on February 12th, kind of the details of our budget. I know that information has been distributed. And it's a good situation. She's done a really nice job kind of getting up to speed, understanding, where we stand currently. And it's a really great feeling to know that we're in good hands there, and also that financially we're trending in a positive direction. So the budget amendment is there for your consideration and approval this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Meinke. If I can get a motion for the approval, Mrs. Roney?
That the Novi Community School Board of Education approve the 2024-2025 budget amendment as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Roney and supported by Mrs. Kleebert. Do we have any specific questions or comments? I know that, as Mr. Meinke pointed out, there was a Finance Committee of the Whole meeting. Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We will move on to our final action item, which is the Snowboard State Finals field trip approval. Mr. Meinke.
Yeah, so this is coming to you for action because we've never had this before, and we just found out about it last night or two nights ago.
Still not even, right? Like-
So, for the first time, our student athletes on the girls snowboard cross team have qualified for the state competition. The state competition is scheduled for to be up in Gaylord, and will obviously be something that's going to take place on February 27th through the 28th. And so it is recommended that you approve the trip for our border cross team as presented.
Do we have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cook. Mr. Cook?
I move that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education approve the snowboard state finals in Gaylord, Michigan for February 27th through February 28th.
Do we have support?
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. Do we have any comments or questions?
Treetops.
Yes. It'll be at Treetops, and we still don't know exactly who will go. We know from a team aspect that the girls, the Noville team has qualified, and so those girls will go and compete. And then on Monday, this upcoming Monday, they have individual trials for, so any individual, they take the top 20 racers, and those kids go. The whole team goes and supports the team once one athlete is there. But we don't know exactly how many students we will have participating. Right now, it's just the girls' team, and then once the individual trials go on, they'll decide on that, so.
Individual trials are Monday at what time at Mount Brighton?
They're at Mount Brighton, and they begin usually, I like to say 5:30, but sometimes you get there at 5:30 and they start at 6:15. Sometimes you get there at 6 and they have started at 5:45, so any time between 5:30 and 6:15. Yeah. So, and that, it's a long night for individual trials because every single racer gets to do 2 opportunities and they take their best score, so, yeah, yep, yep.
I just happened to notice that the form that they fill out is fairly blank. Would that be filled out in more detail once the details are known? I feel like we're kind of approving some very vague details. We have somebody spearheading it that's never coordinated one. The hotel information isn't filled out. I certainly want these athletes to go and
Yeah.
compete and win, but
I know for this particular event, and I only know because now I'm gonna take off my board president hat and put on my parent hat just to help out. Parents are required to attend with their children. So if there's any question, I think about chaperoning and any of that, a parent has to take the child and actually even drive the child to the event. So if they're staying off-site at a hotel locally or at a cottage or anywhere up north, that it was specifically said by the coach to the parents and families that an athlete has to be driven by a parent to the actual venue. Parents are responsible for all costs, so it's a kind of a vague situation anyway. There's no contributions being brought in by the school, whether it be transportation or money or anything like that.
Also, just based on the timing being next week, there was no way for us, we don't even know the information yet, other than we know that we have some athletes that are seeking to go to the event. And since our board policy requires that the board approve any overnight trips, this is the most updated information we have currently.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I have Ms. Bodwine.
I actually would just like if you could provide a little bit of detail with your parent hat on of exactly what this activity is. It's snowboarding
Racing.
Racing?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I've heard the term, but I'm like, I'm
I know.
not
It's
entirely
very weird. It used to be called border cross.
Yeah,
Now
okay.
it's called snowboard cross. I'm not sure. I think the league probably changed it. So
Okay.
basically, it is a course on the hill with gates and things. And then at the very top, there's usually 6 riders. It's like a horse gate. And when the gates go open, the kiddos start the course. And they compete against each other. So I would say the first year that I watched, there was a lot of falling going on, and but the kids are getting really good over the years at all the schools that participate, and there's less of that, and it's super competitive. So they do team events, and then they do individual events. So throughout the season, they do team and individual events.
Very cool.
6 kids going down a course with no lanes. So it's
Yeah.
elbows and.
I can show you a video.
I would like that.
Each other.
Yeah, I've seen snowboarding where they're doing more like tricks and things like that, but I had not seen racing of that. So Mrs. Klebert says this is something that's done in the Olympics. So, but I thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put my school board hat back on. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries 7-0. We'll move on to information and discussion. We have three items this evening. We'll start with the proposed athletic handbook discussion. Mr. Miko.
Yeah, so back in June of last year, we brought forward a student handbook revision to the board after we had established policies and then went through and had done our revisions through Troon. We brought that forward, but at the time, the athletic handbook really had not been updated in quite some time. So Dr. Carino spearheaded an effort with our athletic department to bring that forward and work on that throughout the fall. And so I will turn it over to her with any information that's being presented about the student handbook. It's here for information in hopes that next month we'll be able to approve it. So go ahead.
Yes, I really will thank Don Machowski, our athletic director, for his work on developing this. It was something that he had hoped to create so that there was some consistency and some clear explanations for expectations for our athletic program. Troon, our district law firm, looked it over and made their recommended changes, so it brings to you for your consideration this evening.
Mr. Misher.
Yes, thank you. Question, what are the yellow highlighted sections indicating to us?
I will have to look at it and I will tell you.
I didn't know if those were new sections or sections
Yeah.
that were, I was gonna ask, because I was curious too, whether or not there were any substantive changes from, I mean, we've had an athletic, this isn't brand new, right?
It is not brand new. I believe that this is more reflective of, the previous handbook had not been done for quite some time. And so this is an opportunity for kind of an update to some of the new practices and policies that they're using. But then that has to square with board policy, and then Troon has to look at it, and so on and so forth. So.
I do not know what the yellow highlighted aspects are, but I can ask Mr. Wachowski and I can send an email to the board tomorrow to follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments?
I have a quick question
Yes,
or
please.
slash comment that I would be remiss to not say out loud. I compared this to some other districts as well, and there's a lot of similarities, not too many differences. The one section that really piqued my interest was the section on drugs, alcohol, and tobacco policy, and that we allow a student 3 offenses of breaking a law before they lose their spot on a team. And I mean, we're talking about children at the end of the day, and the fact that we're allowing, and I understand kids make mistakes, and I also think sports are really, really important to keeping a lot of mistakes from happening. I think it's a privilege to play high school athletics, and I think it's really important to keep kids as part of those teams. With that said, we are essentially in this document, your first offense, you lose 25% of something, your second offense, you lose 50%, your third offense, you're removed from the team. It seems odd to me that we are allowing a child to break a law related to alcohol 3 times before they lose that privilege. So I guess I would just maybe question that or open that for some type of discussion. I just felt the need as a parent of 3 children to say that out loud.
I'm curious, what is the stance in the other policies that you read?
Similar. But just because Northville has 3 offenses for drugs and alcohol doesn't mean we have to. And I totally get that kids make mistakes. I'm sure some of us did, and God bless there wasn't digital photography to catch it, but it seems odd to me that we would allow a child to break a law 3 times before there was some kind of suspension from their team. So I just wanted to say that out loud.
Thank you. Yep, Mr.
One other-
Commissioner, go ahead.
One other thought is, just so I understand your position, is your thought that after the first offense, you're thinking it would be more appropriate to be suspended for the remainder of the season, or move right to how the program states it, the handbook states it right now for third offense, where they're suspended currently and from all future, and I would assume that would be for the rest of their time, K through 12, wherever that offense occurred. So where is your thoughts on that?
I don't know if I have a specific counter proposal. Even if you have 2 offenses, we remove one of those offenses. I just think that as a board, allowing a child to break a law 3 times is obscene to me. But I do understand that kids make mistakes and you should be allowed to learn from that mistake. But wanted to say that as a parent.
Thank you. Mrs. Bodwine?
Just a question on how this policy plays out. Is this referring to drug and alcohol use at school, or just like, let's say a kid got in trouble for being at a party on a weekend? Does that come back to us for this policy purpose?
Yeah, a kid, yep. So when it comes to athletics, student athletes are, and this is common throughout, pretty much every school. If you're at a place where there's alcohol or there's drinking and things like that, then you would be subjected to these guidelines. That's different from how we would treat kind of school academic, setting consequences, because the assumption is that extracurricular activities and, athletics and things like that are a privilege. I will say, just to kind of a point of clarification, the 3 offenses, they're not for an individual during a particular season. They're over the course of the career, right? So if I'm a freshman and I make a mistake, that's the 25% rule. If I'm a junior, make a same mistake, now you're at 50%. And again, you could absolutely shrink that and go right to step 3, but step 3 is permanently, they will not participate in any any of those programs for the time that they're a student in our district. So it is not like they did this all like within a year or something like that. It is for the history of their time as a student athlete. And that's probably why it's fairly consistent with a lot of other school districts. But as a board, you certainly have the opportunity to look at that, however you want to do that.
How frequently are we seeing this policy being,
Enacted.
used? Thank you, enacted. I'm blanking on that word. So like, how regularly are students suspended for the 25% of the season? Or?
I don't have that exact answer I wouldn't want to give you like an answer that is completely speculative. In my experience working both as a high school principal and a superintendent, this does happen typically multiple times throughout the year with student athletes. So, but specifically to our athletes, I'd have to get to get you a number. I wouldn't know that, but it's more than like once a year. I'll say that.
Okay, so it's not like this never happens, but this isn't something we're seeing super frequently.
Correct.
So I guess for me, I think that, like, I understand Mrs. Klebert's point here with that's an awful lot of breaking the law to be permitting. But I also think that especially, when we're not talking about things that are happening like in our buildings, and I think that, I think our athletics should be supporting, really putting pressure on students to not partake in these events. I want to make sure we're not like overly penalizing kids if they make bad decisions, because personally, I do feel like a lot of times, teenagers make mistakes, and there's a lot of information I've seen about teenagers not always necessarily having an accurate expectation of the outcome of their choices. And so I do think that, even if we want to look at taking this down to like 2, then I would say that that's something that we should be, reviewing, even if it kicks up to you on the 3rd offense or something like that. Like, I would be open to something where we're having a little more conversation. Because I do think there's a big difference between, if a student is like, using a vape. I was gonna say smoke a cigarette, but that made me sound really old. So if like a student's using a vape is a little bit different than if they're doing something, with like more dangerous drugs or, those kind of things. So I just wanna make sure that we're giving kids chances to learn as well as reasons to not participate in these activities. That
Thank
makes
you.
sense.
1 second, Mr. Missioner. I am gonna actually, Cameron had his hand up. Did you?
Yeah, sorry, but I was curious, so I don't have any policy on here, but like for the 25%, is that like that 25% of the season, you're not like a part of it like whatsoever? Like at all, is that?
25% of your current season, depending on when it happens. And if you're in less than 25% of the season, then it would be your upcoming season.
Okay, got you.
It's good to know that you haven't had this circumstance.
Yeah, I've never.
Do you have any thoughts on it as a student, though? I mean, I might just be out of touch with high
And
schoolers.
you can be honest.
Okay, so like, obviously a student board rep, I like know a big portion of our high school, so like that ranges from people who will like never ever ever touch anything like that versus people who have tried it versus people that would do something like that almost weekend. Like it's not like a secret or anything like that, right? However, when it comes to like actual like punishment as far as like enforcing that in like the school building, like when it comes to sports, it's just hard. It's just as a fellow, like as an actual student, I understand that it is breaking the law clearly and whatnot, and so obviously like teenagers make mistakes, and I do believe that they deserve to face some consequences as far as like, their season being out, and I think that 3 offenses personally is like too many. Like, if somebody were to go, like hypothetically, right, go out and like do something really bad and like completely have like a terrible night, right, and black out, that teaches them something in itself on top of whatever they're being punished on. Them actively choosing to go and do that decision again and then again, that's I think more on them than it would be the actual sports teams or like the school or anything like that. And obviously, I'm sure there's plenty other circumstances or anything else that could be happening, but with that, I think that like 2, maybe not like 1, but like I think 2 would be a good number personally.
Thank you. And sorry to put you on the spot, but we appreciate your mature answer because it's hard. It's a hard decision even as adults sitting around a table making decisions for the district. So we do appreciate your honesty. Mr. Mena, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I would just like to know how much thought was actually put into it. Like I said, we've had this policy for a while. I'm not so sure that that's actually changed, right? That's been there for a while. So as we were going through it, it'd be interesting to find out when we got to that section whether there was a pause in some actual discussion, and it'd be good for me to understand maybe what some of the perspectives were coming from the athletic department as well.
What we'll do is, on top of some of the questions that Dr. Carino will get answered in her communication back to the board, we'll talk with Mr. Wachowski to get some of that background on this particular subsection.
Thank you. 1 second, Mrs. Maroney. I think my concern is that, this, and I'm not defending the kids, it's illegal, they shouldn't be doing wrongdoing and be getting, multiple times. I think that my only hesitation with not having the 3 is that this is their whole career. So if we really want to think of every single scenario, you could think of a kiddo in 8th grade, 7th grade. And if we think that that's not happening there, then we're like all naive at this table. But if you have a kiddo maybe who, went to a little party down the street and there was vaping and the police came in and they got in trouble for that, then that's their one ding. And so now they haven't even started high school. And so, saying, okay, you've learned hopefully your lesson, but the chances of immature brain learning their lesson is pretty low. And so they get another chance. But I mean, as Cameron pointed out, by the 3rd time, you are now saying, okay, you're done. And I think that is consequences in itself, because that child could be only in 10th grade and they can't play sports for the rest of their time. So although it seems like a lot of chances, we are really talking about their entire career at Novi Community School District. And I think that some of the times these things start quite early for these kids. Mrs. Roney?
I'm just looking at this, and one of the problems I had with this, and my kids both came up through Novi, and they all played sports. There were incidents, and some of the coaches, they're still coaching, that there were parties, kids got in trouble, and because it was a stellar team, you know, things were not handled properly. And because it's kind of subjective. If you hear about, hey, Johnny was at that party and he was drinking, or Susie was at that party and they were drinking, it's very subjective. And then you get down into this and you're taking away a kid's maybe chance at a scholarship on hearsay. So that's where I have some problems. Now, if they get a minor in possession ticket, you know, it's black and white, cut and dry. Okay, I understand that. We also have in the second offense that they do have to do a drug and alcohol program, and they have to complete it, or they're automatically donezo. So, I mean, I would look at 1, 2, 3. You know, the 2 is the part where we're going to help them if they have an addiction or if there's a reason they're self-medicating. And then the third offense, you know, after that second one, hopefully there should not be a third one if we've done our job properly. So that's, I just look at, I would hate to take away some kid's chance at college.
Thank you, Mrs. Roney. Mr. Mishner?
So I just think it's interesting that we delineate between violations of the law that involve substances versus general violations. The general violation section is a 2-step offense. But at the same time, step 2 uses the language of it may result in the student athlete being suspended for all future athletic participation, which seems subjective, whereas if you hit step 3 for substances, it's a will be. So I think that it wouldn't hurt to give some more detailed reflection on these. Also, there's a subset of the substance ones where if the first offense is self-reported, then that may not result in any loss of playtime, it seems like. So I think, you know, it would be interesting to at least have a better explanation of why we do delineate between substance violations of the law and general violations and how we do different processes for those.
Can I make a recommendation?
Please.
Okay. Based on the discussion, and obviously if there's more discussion, that's great. But what I would recommend we do is bring this back for info and discussion again with an update, right? So I'll ask Dr. Carino to work with the team on these specific subsections. And then at the next meeting, we're not gonna bring it for approval. We'll bring it with some revised things based on this conversation. And then from there, we can determine the next course of action. Would that be advisable?
Yeah.
Acceptable?
Would you see if Mr. Wachowski is available to join us for that conversation?
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks.
So just to
Mr.
be
Mena?
clear,
Yeah.
from, at least from
Yes,
my perspective,
please.
I'm not necessarily looking for any changes here. You know, I'm not looking for at least from my perspective, for any specific changes. I just want to get some background on
Was there a
the
lot of
thought
discussion?
process on this. And I know that, again, I think this is the same rules we had previously, right? So we haven't changed this. And I'm just wondering, as we were going through it, was there a pause? Was there much discussion around this, like we're having around the table right now?
Yeah, I think
And if
what
so,
we
what is
can
it?
do is provide, like, here is the existing language as presented, and here would be an option B or an option C, and then he can provide context as well as the thought that went into that.
But I'm not even looking for, I mean, and I'm not, I don't want to speak for the rest of the board, I'm not even looking for option B and C. I just want to hear from somebody to say, hey, you know, we're putting this forth, we think this is the best way to go, just explain it. Just defend the policy.
Sure.
Okay,
Sounds good.
thank you. So we will, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cook.
Getting off that topic onto a couple others here. There are links in this to certain things, and I think we ought to have, instead of the list of the coaches down on the bottom, which is already outdated, a link to his file that has the coaches on it for each sport. The other thing I noticed in here, what section? Section 14, F, the quitting a sport. I agree that they are no longer allowed to be in that sport, but they're also not allowed to participate in any sport training, which would be if, like, off-season, to me, would include off-season weightlifting for, say, a kid quit basketball, they're not allowed to weightlift that season for football coming up, or lacrosse, or, baseball, because we do put in the winter, we put our spring teams in there lifting and stuff like that and doing training exercises with them. So I'm just curious as to what the thought behind that part of it was.
Okay.
Mrs. Bodwine? I know this all says athletics, but does this apply to our other extracurriculars as well? And is that a thing that we have considered?
We have not done a extracurricular and activities handbook. That discussion has happened, but we are not at a point where we have anything to present or bring forward from that lens.
Is there a reason we feel like it should be different rules for athletics versus marching band or?
I don't believe there's any reason that anyone thinks that. It's just simply the size of, this particular program has a lot more, what I'll say, bureaucratic oversight. So the MHSAA drives a lot of the different policies, procedures, and things like that. There's probably not a high school that you're gonna find that doesn't have an athletic handbook. Most high schools won't have a extracurriculars handbook. So it's more just a product, this is not a good answer, the way that it's always been.
Oh, well,
Right,
if it's
so-
always been that way.
Right, so my point is, it's a great idea, it's just not something we've explored yet. So I
Okay.
think it could be something that happens, but not something that exists most places at this.
So would we think then we want something separate for that? You wouldn't want to just expand this to apply to,
I think that's a conversation. The nice thing about having it separate is that you get into a lot of the details of athletics in this handbook.
Okay.
Whereas it's very different when you're talking about maybe, the band program, for example. And I do think that the band has internal documents that they use, like here's the sign-up sheet and you have to sign off on these commitments and things like that, but it's not necessarily as robust as what we have here. So I think that that's a good conversation to have.
and I'm not trying to call out the band in particular,
No,
just
no.
to be
I
very
know.
clear.
It could be any of our clubs or activities, right?
Yeah, and especially as we talk about things like the substance abuse or other like law-breaking things that might occur. And to me, if you are making those kind of choices, I don't necessarily feel like, okay, you can't play soccer now, but you can still do band. Like that doesn't necessarily align with how I would think about it. But maybe there's things I don't know. So if that could be added to the conversation for next month about how that overlaps and if we want to connect those things or separate them, might be good to look at. Thank you. Mrs. Sleeper?
Would it, just to go off of Paul saying, having a link to the list of coaches, do the fees change over time? That would be beneficial to the department to also have that in a separate document, such that if it needed to be changed, the participation fees or the ticket prices, that would just be in a separate document, so they had more flexibility?
Those have been pretty consistent over the years.
The pay to participate, are you speaking about?
Just, there's a lot of different fees,
Yeah.
and those might change over time or need to change over time, so if it's beneficial, I think it would be okay to be in a separate document that they could change.
Like if admission ticket prices go up. or
Right,
something
like,
that. Sure.
is it gonna be 6 forever, or?
And
I don't
now
know.
it's cashless, right?
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, I don't care that it's in here, I was just, if it gives them more flexibility.
Sure.
Alrighty. Any other, Mrs. Roney?
I just, Betsy brought up a good point about the club, you know, the different activities. But are they, I mean, are all students, they're all under the student handbook, no matter what?
Yep.
Okay, so there is kind of a handbook for,
There is,
all of
there's
our
just not a
kids.
specific extracurricular activities handbook that enumerates the specific things that might happen. Because this isn't just about consequences, right? I mean,
Right.
this document talks about how do we get, how do we run our coaches? What's our philosophy? All of those types of things. And so, it's just not something that we have for our other programs. But they
Right.
are under the student code of conduct, but that document is really geared towards their school day, like what they're doing at school.
okay.
Okay. Cameron, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, actually, just one really quick thing. So just to get everything clear, if you were to like right now as it stands, it's three strikes you're out kind of thing, right? But does that necessarily include? Obviously, it includes like athletics, and we're obviously the ECs are kind of part of the student handbook. But like just your enrollment, how would that be affected if this were to happen 3 times? Like you like just going like being a student at Novi High School, kind of thing. Is that?
You want me to take it?
Yeah.
So it would not affect your enrollment in school at all, in any way, shape, or form, including any of these offenses.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is really about your athletic participation and what would happen with that.
Oh.
So, yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can go out and be wild, don't tell
Right.
your
Oh,
friends.
yeah,
if-
of course
no,
not,
I'm just
no.
saying, under the student handbook, there are consequences and accountabilities that are falling in there, but they're probably a little different than this. This is specific to athletics and participation in that, right?
Thank you.
Mrs.
So
Beaudoin?
just to clarify my understanding, if a student is violating those laws in our buildings, that is covered by our student handbook, and there are consequences that come under that. This is more talking about, like, if a kid is doing something over a weekend or after school hours, where they're not necessarily under our care, but we're saying, okay, if you're making these decisions, that's gonna impact your privilege to participate in certain activities that are offered. So in terms of like enrollment, suspension, like any of those things, that would be more in-school violations versus,
Outside.
like on the weekend, we're not really, that's not our purview generally, so. Is that all accurate for what you understand, Mr. Micah?
There's,
Yes, Mr.
there's a
Commissioner?
little bit of tie-in, because if it does interlink disciplinary action with school suspensions, and so there is some cross tie-ins, but I get the general purpose of the document. Athletics take place outside district, over field trips like we were just approving, after school hours in different facilities, neighborhoods, so. Yeah, it'll be interesting discussion, when it comes back to the board for review.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work that's being done, Dr. Carino. I think that this helps staff, coaches, students understand the expectations and accountability. I know that there's probably some tricky instances where, a blind eye could be turned if you have a star athlete, and I think if the students know the expectations and the coaches have some support, then it just makes life a little bit easier. So we appreciate all the work and look forward to further conversations.
You are welcome, but I do not want to take credit for it. This was really Mr. Wachowski's
Okay,
project.
if you can
so
tell him.
I will pass the things on to him.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to our second information and discussion piece, Let Grow Experience, Anxious Generation Ideas. Mr. Micah.
Alrighty, thank you very much. I'm gonna show one of the websites that I'd like to kind of talk with you about, and this is not something that I'm gonna be asking for the board to consider voting on anything or anything like that, but I wanna just bring awareness and allow you to understand some of the things that we have done in the past 6 months related to the anxious generation. There is an actual group called Let Grow. Let Grow is it was actually co-founded by Jonathan Haidt, who is the author of Anxious Generation, and they have just a tremendous amount of resources. And so I wanted to let you know that these are discussions we're gonna start having within the district. Some of them have already started to happen. But you can see that they have, all sorts of different things about, there's advocacy for state laws and schools and so on and so forth. But if you click on the parents, there are tons and tons of resources about ways that parents can help their kids at various ages become more independent. Ways for parents to allow their kids to, play and experience the principles from Anxious Generation. So they have a variety of trainings, they have Facebook groups, they have resources, but there's also things in here specifically related for schools. So if you were to look at the area for Let Grow for Schools, Lenore Skenazy is one of the co-founders. She wrote quite a bit of this, but there's an opportunity for even ideas that are going to matriculate, and some of those discussions have even happened at this board table related to some of the outcomes of that book. One of the things that we talk a lot about is our playgrounds, and I think the Meadows Playground is a great example of what may be a design of a responsibly risky environment for kids to engage in, opportunities to climb, possibly get a scrape or a bump or a bruise, right? Basically an obstacle course. These are things that are part of these recommendations. One of the things that we're talking about with Mr. Tobis is this idea of the Let Grow Play Club, which is essentially an opportunity for us to have at the elementary level, unstructured playtime. And I know that Ms. Bodwine's talked about this in the past. We've all, this is part of the literature. I just want to kind of let you know that when we talk about Anxious Generation last year, and we've had a number of discussions about that at this table, that work is still continuing. It's not like that's gone away. Of course, we still are talking about what we're going to do with cell phones and all of those things. That'll be a discussion that comes back to you in March. There's also these other kind of sub-conversations going on about what can we do to create an environment where, if you think about those 6 graduate profile competencies, they live out in a lot of these things. Are we allowing kids to experience and explore and grow in a way that's very healthy and allows them to kind of pursue who they are as young people? So I just would encourage you to check the website out. I am going to be sharing some of these principles next week at the State of the District, just as an ongoing update, and I wanted to make sure the board had the opportunity to hear some of that. I highly encourage you to go to letgrow.org. You'll have the opportunity to see a lot of the resources that they have there and potential ideas for even initiatives locally here in the district that we'd like to get off the ground as early as this year. So,
Thank you. Betsy? First, Mr. Micah, thank you for bringing this to the board and to the community. I know I have sent this to you a number of times, as this has been, I don't mean it in a this has been a thing that I've been excited about. And so I know we have a lot of things going and we can't do everything all at the same time, but I'm excited to see this as something we're going to start pushing out more to the community. One of the things that struck me with the Anxious Generation book as we read that was talking about playgrounds and how students play, and the idea that over, I don't know, however many years, we have switched as parents to trying to make sure our students and kids are as safe as possible. And this book and Let Grow really encourage us to be as safe as necessary. And the big difference there is that kids learn by taking risks, and if we don't let them figure out where their limits are, then they think their limits are going to be a lot smaller than what they actually are in a lot of situations. And I think this is a really great thing to look at, this play club. The idea with that, from what my understanding was that it's like one adult to make sure nobody is like seriously injured, and otherwise the kids play, and if there's a problem, the kids sort it out. And it gives them an opportunity to advocate for themselves, to figure things out, to find somebody different to play with if this kid isn't doing what I want to do. And it's really an excellent learning experience. And I think societally, we've really shifted to where we are instructing kids how to play instead of giving them chances to sort that out and doing them a great disservice. So I'm excited. I would love to see that actually come, as something that we do, like a little after-school club or something where kids can just run around and be kids. And it does keep kids off electronics if they're playing outside, and all those other great things. So I just, again, want to echo what you're saying, that this is a really great thing for parents to look at. And also, the other thing that I thought was great about this before, it talks about even giving kids like little challenges, like try something you've never done before at home. So maybe that's like you're gonna make pancakes and you've got an adult telling you like, yep, that's how the stove works, but you know, you're not doing the whole thing. And you're hands off letting the kid actually figure it out and read the directions. And some of what we learned in Anxious Generation really has changed even how I interact with my children. So I want to really encourage people to read that book and also look at the site, because to me, those opportunities to let kids figure it out are really where you see then your kids are really capable of a lot of things you didn't know they were capable of. And it's really exciting as a parent to see. And I would also advocate for us to review how we handle recess in the lower grades and the amount of rules that we have at recess. Because I think a lot of times in an effort to keep things orderly and easy for the adults, we create a lot of structure. And we're then missing some of the opportunities for kids to really explore and learn about themselves at recess, so.
Yep, and one of the cool things to Let Grow, this year we're gonna be opening it up the opportunity for our high school students, which a lot of these ideas, they span multiple grade or age levels. This year we're gonna be opening up the opportunity for our high school seniors. Let Grow does $8,000 and multiple $2,000 scholarships for high school seniors who write an essay about the importance of independence, curiosity, and open-mindedness in their everyday lives, which ties exactly right in with our graduate profile. So I think there's a lot of tie-ins in this work and what we're kind of discussing. And now hopefully some of our kids would have access to even getting some money, as our kids like to apply for scholarships. So it'll be a good opportunity, so.
Thank you. Mr. Mishner, did you have something?
Yeah, I think Trustee Bodwine mentioned a lot of the things that I was thinking about. It'd be specifically interesting to see how a play club concept could exist side by side with our current care program, how that would work. It also could be a potential means to alleviating the drop-off pickup line for parents if, you know, they were able to, within a window, drop their children off at the playground area, and then they would naturally go into school, or they could exit to the playground area and be picked up within a certain window. That might practically alleviate some of our traffic congestion issues as well.
Thank you. Anybody else before I get Mrs. Boutwine back on the horn?
Sorry, I feel like I stopped talking and I'm like, oh gosh, there was one other point. The other thing in Anxious Generation that was really amazing about this idea of like more free play at recess is that schools that started doing that saw a huge decrease in disciplinary problems within their student population. So aside from it just being like a great chance for kids to learn, having more free play at recess and more chances for them to really, you know, explore and use their brain in a different way, reduced a lot of the disciplinary things, which is always good.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Great discussion, and we look forward to hearing more. And the state of the district, we will be eager to see how this rolls out to the community. So we will move on to our final information and discussion item, which is the Novi Meadows 6/ITC technology renovation project.
Thank you. So in February this year, we extended contracts recommendations for Moss Audio to provide the structured cabling systems to DAT. And essentially what we're doing in a nutshell is we're looking at our new sixth grade house. And so as you know, there are 5 distinct programs there. The Novi Robotics Center. We have the new board office and central office facility. We also have our Japanese School of Detroit, the Special Education Center, as well as our NATC facility. And so all of those facilities, they need certain amounts of technology to be able to run effectively. And so anytime we do a project, of course, the construction comes first, and we do have a budget for technology, which is in all of our construction projects. And we actually asked for the design to be done. I know that Matt McCarty is here tonight, who's done a lot of the front end work on getting these bids and everything in place. And then Lisa Whiteside, who is one of our tech leaders here as well. This essentially covers the entire building. So if you can imagine the special education spaces, they're going to need a PA system from a safety perspective. They're going to need classroom audio and video equipment. You can imagine just basic things like phones, and then, you know, in the new board office, there's going to be a need to have the streaming capabilities and the ability to run the meetings like we do here. You know, microphones and cameras and all of those different types of things. So all of those projects are there for your consideration. The total amount is $810,190.74. That includes a contingency amount as well. One of the things that I will just highlight on this project, this has been something we've known about, we budgeted for, the money is in the budget for technology on this project. We were notified that due to the potential of possible tariffs, there could be a 10% increase in this cost, which is a fairly substantial amount. And so I have Matt here tonight, I know Lisa's here tonight as well for any potential questions. I normally like to put things on info and discussion, and then the next month we go. It's possible that we never will be hit with the tariffs, but if we are hit with a 10% increase, that would be a substantial amount of additional dollars. So if we lock in the pricing and it's approved, then we can issue contracts and then know that we can keep the pricing at what it is. But I just want to put that on your radar. And then if you have questions about that, I can answer, or Matt or Lisa are here for you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Micah. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Matt and Lisa, for being here tonight and sticking it out to the bitter end almost. So, Mr. Micah, I have a quick question. Was I making assumptions in hearing you say that if we don't have any specific questions and the board would be comfortable taking a vote on this tonight, that we could potentially lock in some pricing versus waiting until our March meeting? Is that correct?
That is correct. So the $810,190.74, that amount we would be able to lock in currently. And that amount would likely be the same in March if there are no tariffs that hit us. If the tariffs do hit us, this number could be 10% higher. And so it's just kind of one of those things, you know, it's really up to you as a board on whether or not you want to lock the pricing in for sure. You know, I just don't have a crystal ball. I don't think anybody does related to what's going on with that. But this would be locked in and we would get this if it's approved tonight. If it's not, we'll bring it back at the March meeting, and it could be the same price, or it could be hit with a 10% increase.
Okay. Mr. Commissioner, I saw your hand up.
Yes, so just curious, I'm wondering, this meets our district initiative for technology for goal 1. I'm curious for our financial stability, that goal 2, does this also bring any improvements in energy efficiency, year-over-year energy savings as well?
I'll let you kind of speak to that.
Energy savings.
Well, all of our technology doesn't use any energy, no. I have to admit, I'm not familiar with your specific energy goals. However,
What I will say to that end, I would give you I'm going to qualify this by saying I'll get back with you with a more specific answer, but my initial answer is going to be no, because the efficiency that we're realizing with some of the technology that's not here are in like our VAV systems for mechanical equipment that regulates, you know, keeps a temperature at a certain range and things like that. Our windows, by way of example, that have new technology for, you know, different R values and things like that. This is really more about how we're you know, being able to communicate throughout the building from a safety perspective, phones, audio, boardroom equipment, those types of things. But if there is something that's here that does hit that kind of goal for energy efficiency, I will make sure I get back with you on that.
the structured cabling system does support, in addition to the data network and the phone network, it does support the HVAC, the electrical, controls and things like that, so.
And are the audio-visual, I would assume they're the latest and greatest, so
Yes.
more energy efficient than anything
That's correct.
currently we'd have,
That's correct.
so. I just thought that would be good to know.
That's
that
good. Yeah.
we're making progress to our goals as we
Yep.
approve these large sums for capital expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Mrs. Kleber, did you have a question
Is
or
there
comment?
something that we're hoping to learn or additional information we have to gather between now and March that we wouldn't vote on it now?
I can kind
or
of
is it?
clarify, I've been notified by 2 of the contractors that their suppliers have already said, expect a 10% increase.
Okay. But I'm saying, other than price, is there any reason why we would wait a month? Or is it just because we always do our discussion first and then our voting?
I think the price is probably,
The only reason?
yeah,
What
and I don't
you've
think
laid
it's a
out here is
reason, I
what's
think
gonna
it's just a
happen.
risk.
Okay.
It's a risk. So Matt, to clarify that, regarding the prices going up, like, if we approve this evening and you ordered it tomorrow, we're good to go?
We would have a memo of understanding that would lock in the prices, that's correct.
That we see in front of us tonight, correct? Okay. Mr. Cook?
Just curious, you mentioned that we had a budget in there for this. How do we compare to that budget?
So our technology budget is done from a lump sum perspective, so there's.
Individual project, but don't have it?
They don't have it as an individual project, and we have not come close to exhausting it, but, this really was done from a needs perspective, and they've done a pretty substantial job of walking the site countless times. Our own tech team has done a fantastic job working with Matt and building this out, so, it's not a small endeavor, but, in terms of the actual budget itself, we're well under because they look at it as an overall than instead of an individual building.
So we don't expect to have to save somewhere else to pay for this?
No.
Well,
We were under on some of our technology budget for the Meadows facility by way of example, so, there's a number of things that.
If I
Mr.
can,
Cook? Yes,
if I
please.
can, I'd like to make a recommendation then.
please feel free.
I'd recommend that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the technology proposal for Novi Meadows 6 and ITT renovation project of $810,190.74.
Support.
To be paid for out of the bond,
Okay.
capital project fund.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. Do we have any other questions or comments? Mrs. Bodwine?
I just wanted to inquire, have we made sure the equipment we're looking at works for all the people that are gonna be using this? Is that, so like,
Yes.
how did you guys select, like, what you're recommending for the special education or the boardroom or?
Well, there's two avenues. Basically, we want to make sure that it works for the people that are going to be using it. We also want to make sure that there's some consistency and some continuity among the various systems because they all interconnect. And so Lisa and her team have had several meetings with the special ed folks and with the people that are actually going to be using it, the superintendent and some of the administrators that are going to be in those offices. And so we've had ongoing meetings with those people to make sure that we're giving them the technology that they need.
Okay.
So.
By way of example, just kind of a small little tiny sample, video conferencing, right? There's a lot of meetings on Zoom, and we have 9 people around a table looking on a laptop to try and do a video call. Doesn't make a lot of sense, at this point. So Lisa's team explored a much more innovative way to use artificial intelligence cameras that have, in a conference room, we can actually have a Zoom meeting and everybody gets their own little box and we don't have to all be huddled around a little laptop. So those are just one of countless examples of ways that they've done a lot of kind of field testing, working with user groups to make sure that the tech is gonna work for them. I think it's a great question and I think they've done a pretty extensive job of that.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I think we're ready for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for all your work, and we
Thank you.
appreciate your understanding of helping us not incur any additional costs. Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
I'll be brief. I just want to say I had a great coffee with the superintendent this morning. Thank you, Trustee Klebert and Trustee Cook, for showing up and supporting that endeavor and sharing in some delicious scones. It was a nice conversation. We talked with Mr. Wachowski and Mr. Tobis about student activities and athletics. A lot of really great work being done, and I am really excited about the different offerings that we have. You know, when we hear about over, you know, just the literally hundreds of different teams, clubs, activities that we offer here. Really excited this year, a new initiative that's a part of our strategic plan was, you know, adding more opportunities at the early elementary time buildings. And so to have an equitable use of student activity dollars to be able to support 30 new clubs at our 5 elementary schools where they're getting the opportunity to do drama and music and running club and theater. It's just a wonderful invention convention, wonderful thing to see. So very, very proud of their efforts and all the great work that team is doing. And all of our coaches and sponsors and teachers who have stepped up to just do that with our students and provide those opportunities. Also want to make sure everybody is reminded that next week on Tuesday we have the State of the District event. That'll start at 5:30 at Novi High School. Excited for our RSVPs. We're already substantially over the number we had last year, which doubled from the year prior. So hopefully that's a good sign. We also have the Go for the Green event, as Trustee Bodwine mentioned earlier, on March 8th. I would encourage everybody to come out for that and support the NEF. Appreciative of our community and their patience. We know we've had a number of snow days and the midwinter break bunched in. I would concur with Cameron. The staff appreciated the midwinter break at that time, but obviously it's difficult on parents when you have snow days and everything else smattered in there. The last thing that I will say tonight is just to give an update. I know many of you have probably seen the news articles. Governor Whitmer released her executive budget recommendations, which are very positive. I think they look very strong for schools. Of course, this is the first time in a couple years that we've had divided government again, so we're going to be dealing with the House and also the Senate, which are going to have to provide their versions of a budget. It'll be interesting to see how they work together. We're going to be monitoring that and tracking that closely. The good news is that the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference in May, we're hoping to see what we saw at this first estimating conference, which is a significant amount of additional revenue in the general fund and school aid fund. So we're hoping that would be a positive sign for school funding, but the original budget recommendations from the governor look very strong. So we'll keep an eye on that and keep you updated as we get more information. And with that, I will hope to see all of you next Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Micah. We'll move on to administrative reports, and we'll move to Ms. Cicluna.
Sure. On February 4th, our food service team hosted a mood boost event at Village Oaks, teaching students about how the foods they eat affect their moods and performance, and it went over very well. I had a number of pictures sent over to me, and the kids enjoyed it. And it seems like this weather has been relentless lately, and I think when I grow up, I want to fly south for the winter. But until then, continuous thanks to Mike Dragu and his team, who have been working tirelessly to ensure our buildings are warm and the sidewalks and parking lots are still safe and salted for our kids, parents, and teachers. And then also, I just want to give you an update on the electric vans. I believe they've all been wrapped, and our transportation team has kicked off discussions with a number of our club leaders, the sports teams, and actual special ed department to discuss how we can utilize them to drive students around. So more to come there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Carino.
Thank you. We were very excited to be able to recognize our 4 Educators of the Year recently, and so I would like to publicly recognize them for the community who may not be aware of who they are. We have Peggy Bassett, who was our 9th through 12th grade Educator of the Year. So she's an ELA teacher at the high school. We have Kim Kozlowski, who is our 5th through 8th grade Educator of the Year at Meadows. And we have Carly Musa, who was our kindergarten through, or preschool through 4th grade Educator of the Year at Parkview. She's a 2nd grade teacher there, as well as Andrea Tobis, who is one of our counselors at the high school, who was our ancillary staff member of the year. So we were very excited to surprise them and provide them with a stipend from the district. Each of the 4 of them will be in the running for the overall NEF Educator of the Year, who we will be announcing next week. So that is a surprise and under wraps, but we are very excited to be able to recognize the 4 of them. They will be coming to our March board meeting to recognize them and to invite their family and friends to join us so that we can share information from their nomination packets and just thank them for their efforts within the district. We also want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Wallen for their generous donation of the therapy dog program. That funding will actually go towards our next therapy dog. So we are in the process of putting together a video of our dog and our handlers to kind of spark interest throughout the district for future handlers to potentially become interested. We have a great story I think I shared at a previous board meeting about a selectively mute student who first spoke her first words at school when she was with the therapy dog. So we're very excited to be able to share some information about that in our video as well. But with their generous donation, we will be able to sponsor that dog and fund the training. So thank you to them. We just completed our Jumpstart January Wellness Challenge, and I'm going to read the statistics. So we had 352 staff members participate. This was an initiative that Mrs. Johnson, our Director of Mental Health and Wellness, coordinated. We had 87,845,817 steps made by the district, those staff members that participated, which was actually over 43,000 miles. It was more than one trip around the world. So our teachers and staff members across the district were stepping like crazy. So we are very proud of them. The middle school won the competition, and I want to publicly thank some organizations that sponsored this event for prizes and rewards for the members. So we have Fit Theorem. They donated some classes to the winners. Beyond Juice and Eatery in Novi donated some fruit smoothies for the middle school, so they will be getting those in the coming weeks, as well as Friends of Novi Schools, who funded some prizes for them. So we thank each of them for their support of that initiative and all the staff that participated. It was a great way to collaborate together, to have some fun camaraderie between buildings and departments, and to really focus on physical and emotional well-being and health. So thank you to Mrs. Johnson for spearheading that. We're getting to job fair season, so we will be participating in the Michigan State Job Fair coming up in March. And new this year, we are going to be hosting our very own job fair here in Novi. We are looking at potentially coordinating with some other local districts. But having a specific special education job fair for those staff members for those positions, because we know we're in competition with a lot of other districts, and so we really want to hone in on finding the right people, hopefully ahead of the game, so that we're not looking at positions throughout the year, but really filling those positions in the spring. And then we'll be looking at all of our other positions as we look at enrollment numbers and staffing needs in the coming months. And I think that's it, so thank you.
That's a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, and always appreciate your creative and exciting ideas to attract staff to our district. So thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Jeremini?
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. I'd like to start by building on Mrs. Klebert's celebration earlier. This afternoon, I had the opportunity to pop over to Northville High School for the Novi Northville High School Unified Basketball game. Very exciting, just another great experience and another opportunity to highlight our Novi for All culture. Their next event is on March 5th, and it's at Novi High School, so hope to see you there. I also want to acknowledge our very successful first ever WIDA Day that we had last week, Tuesday. So our English learner students have to take the WIDA test annually, and as part of that experience, we tried to make it better by having that be a very focused and celebratory day for them to have streamlined testing. We were able to administer, bear with me, over 4,000 individual tests that day, including 186 kindergarten tests, 1,190 listening tests, same number of reading tests, 1,164 speaking tests, and 471 writing tests. It was all hands on deck. people from Dr. Carino's department were helping to administer assessments to the children. And that actually reduces our testing window, we estimate, by 5 to 6 weeks. And that's 5 to 6 weeks of additional service time that our English learners will have as a result, and 5 to 6 weeks of fewer disruptions in the classroom as we pull students for testing, meaning all students benefit as a result. So we're really excited about how this went, and we look forward to, once we complete all of the testing, engaging in some debriefing to see if there's opportunities to improve it or what we might do in the future. So very appreciative of Spencer Riley, our Director of ELD and State and Federal Programs, for putting this together, her entire team. It was a ton of work to coordinate, and it really went off without a hitch, so appreciative of that. That's all I have.
Fantastic, thank you so much. I know that the board received at least one email of appreciation by a staff member who just thought it was amazing, and we look forward to hearing the final feedback and debrief from that event, so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to not move on to board communication yet. We are going to do the committee member, or the committee reports, so I'm just going to wing this since this isn't on here and it's a modified agenda. I'm going to start, I don't know, Mrs. Roney, you are the Chair of Finance, but we did already approve the budget amendment, so I don't know if you have anything additional or if that sums it up.
Becca did a great job bringing the amendment to us. Me, Mrs. Trustee Cleared, and Jason Mitchner we were there.
Good.
I don't know where the rest of you guys were. It was riveting information. And so that's enough. So that was great. Becca's got her feet wet and just going right at it, so.
Kissed her feet.
Well, I'm gonna be nice,
Thank you so much. Mr. Cook, we had a building naming committee, correct? And you're the chair of that?
Yes, we held a building naming committee meeting today to kind of discuss the scope of work that we're going to look at. We kind of touched on 7 different facilities or parts of facilities that potentially could be named. Mr. Mike is going to get some information for us on, whether we can limit that down or we have to keep it that big. But we're looking at, 5 different areas in the Novi Meadows 6 and ITC area, and even this building as potential renaming. So we look forward to, coming up with some ideas and then bringing some recommendations to the entire board on that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. And Mrs. Bodwine, I know that you had chaired a capital projects committee of the whole, so if you would like to give a brief report, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. So we had on February 10th, the capital projects committee of the whole meeting, and we had our architectural team in to review with the board just the general direction that our community advisory committee is going to be taking. And that community meeting followed that board meeting immediately. So I'll give you a little brief update on that as well, since they kind of covered the same material, just so the community's aware where we are in the project. At this stage, we're still gathering a lot of information about what we think we would like to do with that 2025 bond in terms of what our priorities will be. And at this stage, the architects basically are bringing us different possible scenarios and saying, we could have the locker room could move to here, or we could have a eating area in this space instead of that space. And we as a board reviewed what those questions were going to be, and then that information and those questions were taken to the community group that is meeting to kind of offer different thoughts on what we should be doing. And at the community group where they kind of dug into that, that group has coaches, staff, parents, students, it's just a really broad group of people to get different feedback on what different facilities might need. And they put it all up on the walls around the room and said, tell us what you like and don't like about these different scenarios. And there were notes on everything and a ton of different thoughts, and really giving the architects some direction on what we as a community feel is necessary. And as a board, we reviewed kind of what those questions were going to be and made sure there was nothing that we found to be problematic or anything beforehand. So that way the board is aware of what the community group is looking at. And then our community group is going to be bringing their recommendations back to our capital projects committee as well. And then that ultimately, those recommendations will come to the whole board. So it's kind of the general structure. Mr. Meinke, you got anything to add on that, or?
Yeah, I would say that's a great synopsis. You know, the meeting next week on the town hall, the town hall 3 will actually be a part of the State of the District event. This next week, though, will be largely about educating people that may not have been connected at all to the project. So more kind of resharing the why, you know, some of the things they're considering. But the next bond meeting, which won't happen until our next capital projects committee of the whole, which is March 3rd, we'll be bringing back a much more refined version of those ideas and letting the capital projects committee and ultimately the whole board weigh in on those ideas. There's really 4 critical linchpin decisions that have to be made. What are you gonna do with the pool? What is gonna go in the activity center? How are we dealing with the middle of the building, academic space? And then the 4th one is, what do we do about dining and where kids eat? So those 4 decisions have a cascading effect on a variety of others. And so that'll be in front of you in a couple weeks in the committee of the whole.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move from committee meetings, and then we can do board communication, so I'll let you go first.
Well, no, I just
You
wanted
wanted
to add
yeah.
that this is about the high school. Okay, because it was never said the high school.
Oh.
So people that
Sorry.
don't know, they're like, what? What are we talking about?
Good
Just wanted
point.
to clarify.
This was about the high school,
And
yes.
the bond theoretically will include some other lesser things in other buildings. But the main focus right now with the architects, it has been the high school and the activity center and how those things will work together.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to board communication. Does anyone have any additional communication? I know we talked about a lot of great things during celebrations. Mr. Missioner?
Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Jeremini, the district DEI, district diversity, equity, and inclusion committees, as well as the building committees, on achieving 62.5% completion on having all our buildings have district a multicultural event. So we've now completed all the lower elementaries. Fortunately, I missed Woods, which I heard was fantastic, but I was not feeling well that day. I don't think anybody wanted me to share that at the multicultural event. But I'm very interested to see what our Meadows building does, what the middle school building does, and I know the high school is, I'm guessing, in the depth of planning for their big end-of-year event.
Yes, and the 512 group is actually doing a combined event.
Okay.
Communications will go out soon. The event will occur in April, but I got logged out, so I don't have my calendar. I can't see the exact date. You spanned my whole workday, so like it kicked me out.
So our 3 remaining buildings, they will have a combined event in April? Okay.
They're calling it a student showcase, is that correct?
Yes, and the paths we take, so it's about students sharing about their story, their journey, and their sense of belonging, and what makes them feel good about that. And so it's almost like a talent show. But I'm not doing it justice in describing it, because again, I don't have the file open. Thanks. But she can see my calendar. April 17th is when the event will
Oh,
be.
wow, look at you two. Teamwork.
Tweedledee. And
Well, that'll
You
be-
are.
Looking forward to it, that'll be exciting.
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Missioner. Any other board communication?
An update for Cameron. The hockey team made a comeback in the third period. Unfortunately, not enough. They ended up losing 9-4.
Okay, that's better than 1-7.
Yes, it
Very
is.
positive over there, Cameron.
I tried.
Any other board communication? Mrs. Roney?
Just some stuff, the Oakland County School Board, next dinner is April 7th, or 2nd, and that is open for registration. It's actually gonna be at,
OSTC.
yes, the Northwest Clarkston. But because it's gonna be food by the culinary kids, it will be a wonderful meal. And there's gonna be tours, so if you wanna see that campus. And then the day after the governor's state of state, at noon, there will be a little virtual, like Zoom, whatever you want to call it. They're going to discuss what what that means to the school district, or school district's finances and other things they're going to change.
Great.
So that'll be something to look at, and I think that's all my notes.
Thank you. Any other board communication, Mrs. Bodwine?
I'm going to be redundant and just remind everybody again to please get your tickets for the Green Gala.
Thank you. It's
In
good
case you
reminder.
got distracted watching our meeting and put it back in your head.
Yeah. Any other board communication? Okay. Seeing none, I think we will ask for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Mishner,
Motion to adjourn.
do we have support?
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Mishner, supported by Mrs. Roney. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0.
Did you see that?
Thanks, Cameron.